In this video, I will be showing you guys how to set up your Sony A7 III camera. I did not have a model for this video, so instead I will be using this little air refreshener thing. So first, we're going to turn on the actual camera. Then you might realize that you have a black screen, and that's because you should definitely have your lens cap on at all times that you are not using the camera. This keeps the lens safe and clean. So now that you've removed it, we'll be able to start getting into the video. So now I'm gonna zoom into the screen a little bit so you can get a better view of the menu and everything that shows up on the camera. So the first step is to move the dial to the video section. Your guys' section was probably originally on the P, so just switch it to that little video section right there, and then we'll be able to start setting up the camera for video. If you notice that audio levels appear on the screen of the camera, that is how you know that you are in fact in the video section. So let's get the correct formatted settings in the camera. So you're going to need to push the menu button at the top left. Once you're there, you'll see a bunch of icons at the top. Make sure you're in the second icon and go to File Format and choose the 4K file format. After that, you're going to go down to record setting and you're going to choose the 24p 100M setting. That means you're recording in 24 frames per second. Then you're going to go up to exposure mode and you're going to change it from program auto and switch it to manual exposure. This is how you'll have full access to your shutter speed, aperture, and all those different settings in the camera. The bottom left is your shutter speed, and ideally you want the denominator of your shutter speed to be twice the number of your frames per second. So since we'll be in 24 FPS, the closest that we're going to get for our shutter speed is 1/50. After that, we're going to mess with the aperture. So the aperture is that dial at the front of the camera. You're going to want to lower it down as much as possible to get a blurry background, which in my opinion looks the best. Based off of your camera and lens, it looks like the lowest your aperture can be is 4, which is okay, you still get that nice background, but f2.8 is a lot better. Now that we've done aperture, now we can start talking about ISO. So what you need to do is push that FN button and push the ISO auto button. For this setting, it's okay to keep the ISO at auto, but what you do want to do is go to the minimum and maximum and make the minimum the absolute lowest the ISO can go and the maximum the absolute highest. One of the downsides of this camera is that if you do use the auto and ISO, it won't tell you the number that the auto chose for you. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that the audio is never blinking. If you ever see the word auto blinking, like it is in this video, that means that your shot is either too exposed or not exposed enough. So it can either happen in really dark settings or really bright settings. And the way you can tell is just you're able to see that ISO blink. Your goal every time you film is to not have that ISO blink. There are two ways to fix the blinking problem, and that just depends on what kind of set you're in. If it's too bright outside and it's blinking, that means that you need to increase the aperture, meaning you would make it from a 4 to an 8. And this works vice versa. So if your ISO is blinking in a dark setting, that means you need to lower your aperture. So now that you got ISO squared away, you're going to push your FN menu and you're going to go to the focus area. And it should already be there, but you want the wide focus area. And after that, you're going to go to focus mode and you're going to want it to be continuous. Now that you've done that, you're going to want to go to your menu settings again. Look at the top icon list. Go to the first one that's red. And from there, you're going to go to page 6. Once you get to page 6, you'll see a face/eye autofocus set. You're going to click on it and you're going to want to make sure that it's on. Now if there were a face in front of me, there would be a rectangular box to track the face. But I didn't have a face in front of me, so you can't see it. But after you do that, you're going to want to go back to menu, go to the yellow icon, go to page 3, and you're going to go to that touch panel pad, and you're going to want to make sure that the setting for touch panel pad is on. For you, only the touch panel will probably be on, so make sure you put touch panel pad on. So now if you look at it, you can touch anywhere, and it'll focus on that subject. So if you tap the air refreshener, it'll focus on it. After you've done that, let's go back into our menu settings and figure out how to manage audio levels. So you're going to go back to the icon list at the top, and you're going to go to the second page. And then you're going to see an option that says audio record level. So you can see the little key at the bottom right, it has the different decibels there. And basically you're going to want your subject to talk, and you're not going to want the audio levels to pass -12. That means that the audio isn't too quiet and it is also not clipping. So that's pretty much all the important stuff about the camera. There's obviously a bunch of other things that you can do on it, but for now I'm just going to stay basic and get you guys started with it. So after you've done all these steps, you're going to go back to the menu. You're going to go to the top icon, to the first camera, that's red. You're going to go to page 3, and you're going to go down to where it says memory. So what this is that it saves all of your settings on the number 1 dial mode. So once you save it there, you need to push it in the middle dial, and it'll automatically save these settings for you. So now, each time you go to dial 1, these settings will automatically be preset for you in the camera. So let's turn it off, let's turn it back on, and now we're going to switch the dial to number 1. And as you can see, all the settings that we just saved onto the camera are currently there, and you can start using this dial to record your regular footage. Now I'm going to teach you how to record clips purely for slow-mo. It is super easy, all the settings are almost the same. The only thing that changes are the FPS and the shutter speed. So first step, you're going to go to your menu, you're going to go to the second icon at the top. Then you're going to go down to file format, and you're going to switch it from 4K to HD. The reason you have to do this is because you can't record at a high FPS in 4K on this specific camera. So the one that you're going to want it to be at is at 60p 50M, or you could even use the 120p and 100M, but you would typically use this for like sporty events or stuff that's really fast. So for now, you're going to choose the 60p 50M option. So now you're going to exit the menu, and you're going to want to switch the shutter speed. So remember what I told you earlier, you want the denominator of your shutter speed to be twice the amount of your FPS. Ideally 120 would be twice the amount of 60, but there is no 120 option, so you have to do 1/125, which is fine because it still works. So now you're going to go back to your menu and go back to the memory recall option. From there, you're going to save these new settings in dial 2. So now dial 1 you'll only be using for documentaries, interviews, stuff like that, and dial 2 will be purely used for slow motion shots. Now, considering that you guys only have one SD card, it can be hard to differentiate the shots that you got in 60 FPS and the shots that you got in 24 FPS. So I would recommend that any shots that you get in 60 FPS, you should probably put your hand at the very beginning or do some kind of distinctive factor that lets the editor know that that shot was indeed shot in 60 FPS. Now, just for fun, let me show you what it would be like if you chose 120 FPS. So again, go to your menu, go up to the top icons and choose the second one, go down to record setting and push 120p and 100M. So now you're going to exit the menu, and remember, you want your shutter speed to be twice the amount of your FPS. So if your FPS is 120, you want your shutter speed to be 1/240 250. You would use this speed if you were filming high-speed events, so track and field events, football games, basketball games, stuff like that. But if you just wanted a slow-mo shot of some kids laughing or maybe high-fiving, then 60 FPS will work perfectly. So now you have your whole camera set up, so you can put it away until you actually need to start filming. So all you need to do is just push your screen in, and then you're going to want to put your lens cap back on the camera to keep the lens safe and clean. Wait, there is actually one last thing I forgot to mention. So if you look at the top right there, that is the amount of space left in the current SD card. So you can switch your SD cards by pushing the FN button and pushing that little button right there, and you'd be able to switch the slots. But if you have a slot that's empty, that icon is going to show up. If you notice throughout the whole video, that icon was pretty much on my screen the entire time. So you need to be cautious of which slot you have active on your camera, because the slot that you do want active is obviously the slot that has your SD card in it. So thank you guys for watching and listening. I hope this was really helpful. Feel free to email me or text me if you have any more questions.